Okay, so now we come to the fourth weekly assignment. So this assignment is a little bit more complicated than the other ones. This assignment has 3 parts, but each of the parts is relatively straightforward. So the first part of the assignment is I want you to provide me with an estimate of an example. I want you to provide me with an example of a t-test for the difference between 2 population means, or for a change in a population mean or proportion. Right, so when I say provide an example, I prefer that you find an example from a paper, not from the course book, of course. Again, preferably an example from a paper in your own discipline. Again, I don't need you to provide me with the paper, but provide me with the context of this t-test, right? So either a difference in population means or a change in population mean or proportion. So for this example, I need you to tell me what is the variable being tested, what is the value of the t-statistic, the sample size, the significance level, and the outcome of the test. Now, sometimes it won't give you the value of the t-statistic. It will only tell you the observed significance level. So that's okay, but if possible, if it is there in the paper, I want you to provide all of this information to illustrate to me that you've understood how to apply the t-test. Okay? So that's part 1. Part 2 is an example of a test of independence between 2 nominal scale variables using a goodness of fit test. So this means an example like the car type and marital status example in the course book, but obviously I don't want you to use that example. So please remember this says for 2 nominal scale variables. As I explained in the course book, if one of the variables is ordinal scale or both are ordinal scale, then you should not be using Pearson's x-squared goodness of fit, but a different test statistic. So I want you to show me that you know how to use Pearson's x-squared goodness of fit. I would warn you that quite often papers use Pearson's x-squared even when it's not appropriate, when there is a better method to be used. Obviously, I don't want you to provide me an example where somebody has not used the appropriate test. So for that example, again, preferably from a paper that you have read, but it doesn't have to be if you can't find a suitable one in your discipline. So the reason that I'm asking you to reference papers is because I want you to be able to show that you know how to apply these ideas when you're doing your literature review. So I want you to identify the 2 variables being tested, to tell me what the x-squared goodness of fit value is. Usually it will tell you that, although occasionally not. The significance level used, and the outcome of the test. And did they reject the null hypothesis or not? And then the third part is for any 2-sided confidence interval, if the sample mean and known population variance stay the same, and the sample size is large enough to use the normal approximation, but the sample size increases by a factor of 4, what will happen to the width of the confidence interval? Will it decrease, increase, or stay the same, and why? So this is basically to check whether you've understood how the sample size affects confidence intervals. Okay? And then I've given you some guidance here. For parts 1 and 2, I do not expect you to do the calculations yourself. You can just choose to quote the details from the example. It can be from a book, although I prefer you don't just choose random examples on the internet, which may or may not be reasonable. It's much better to choose an example from a paper that you understand. But please do quote sufficient information to make it clear that you've understood the example, and you must provide the outcome of the test. For the second part, you must test independence of 2 variables, not the distribution of 1 variable. And that was not like the example I gave of mother tongue language. That's a single variable. I want to test the independence of two variables. As I've mentioned, the variables must be nominal scale, not ordinal scale, because if they're ordinal scale, there are better methods. And for part 3, I've given you a hint. Remember that the standard error depends on the sample size. And then the admin notes are the same as before. Please put your name and student number inside the assignment. Please, 2 pages should be sufficient. Quote the relevant parts of any paper you've used, but do not include the whole paper. Please submit via Moodle in A4 PDF format. I really prefer that you do not send it to me in letter format instead of A4, and I prefer you do not upload a Word file. Please convert it to a PDF first so I can print it easily. And again, only email it if Moodle fails. And then again, as before, I will not confirm receipt or a pass, but I will email you if I fail to receive your assignment or if the assignment needs revision. Obviously, in this case, I can't return the assignments in class. So if you need feedback, I will send you the feedback by email. So please ensure you do check your email to see if I've sent you feedback. Okay? Thank you very much.